So you have a custody order, and you wonder how or when can I modify the custody of my children? Well, anytime after you get a custody order that there's been any kind of material change in your situation, things can be modified. Now you may think, hey, I was in a really bad spot before. I'm doing better now. Should I file to modify custody? Well, unfortunately, once custody is established, just you being in a better situation, or just you having more money, just you being off of drugs, just you being out of the court system, just any positive change for you in and of itself may not be a material change. More often than not, we've got to prove that the other side, the other parent, or the other person who holds custody has actually done something to take custody away from them. So when can custody be modified? The truth is, custody can be modified at any time that there's been a material change of circumstances. Or if you're in a joint custody situation right now, we've got to prove that at any time the best interest of your children is going to be served by a change of custody. So at any point in time, a custody modification can be filed. You really need to make sure that some things have happened in order to justify, other than just I'm doing better right now, to justify to the court why a custody modification should occur. Because here's what you got to keep in mind. Anytime you change custody, or anytime you make any change in a child's life, it's going to be disruptive. Kids are creatures of habit, and they really thrive when things stay consistent throughout their life. And so we got to show to the court that the benefits the child's going to receive from a change of custody are going to outweigh any negative effect that they could have from this custody change. Because even just a simple change in their schedule can upset their grades, it can upset even their health sometimes, can upset their emotions. And we got to show to the court that there's going to be a positive change to them that's going to outweigh any burden they're going to suffer by this custody change. And you need to do it when there's been some kind of change, either for the best interest of your children or that some material changes happened that would merit a change of custody over to you. So it can happen anytime, given that certain things have occurred. So you know you want to ask the court to change custody. How do you request that? Well, we file what's called a petition for modification, where we're going to lay out kind of who you are, who the other parent or the other custodian is, and give the court a little bit of background on your situation about what's going on now, about what led to where you have now, and whether it's changing from one parent to the other parent, or changing from grandparents to you, or other situations. We want to explain to the court why the custody should change. And so we lay out the background, and we want to lay out then what is the material change that's occurred. What is different? What situation has happened that justifies to the court why custody should be changed now for this child over to you? And we lay out in this petition to modify how that's going to happen and why it needs to happen. And then we simply file it with the court. And there's various courts we could file that with, depending on what the background is, what's going on, and where you live. We'd file that with the appropriate court. We have to get the other custodian served. Sometimes we have to get other people served, like if other people have a right of visitation, we have to get them served. Do they have a time frame to answer? And ultimately, after all those little details have worked themselves out, we'll request a hearing before the court. And in that hearing, we're going to show up with you and give it all the evidence, all the reasons that you deserve a custody change to the court, and let the court make a decision that we hope will be in your favor, although there's never any guarantee of that. I wish, like everything, that I had a magic wand that I could wave over everybody's situation and make it magically better that would instantly change custody. But the truth is, nobody can promise you what a judge is going to do. We lay out all the facts, all the evidence, and get you present your testimony to the court about why this change has occurred and how it's going to benefit the child. And then after those things, from the petition to the trial, we work through all this over a period of months or sometimes years to ultimately get the custody change that you need. So here's a few key factors that the court may consider when they're looking at whether or not custody should be modified. Sometimes the other parent has fallen into some criminal problems. Now, we hope that doesn't happen for anybody, but unfortunately it does sometimes. And if a person has obtained charges for any criminal offenses, whether it's domestic violence or drug charges or theft or anything else, to me, that would be an important thing that we need to immediately let the court know. Another key factor can be whether or not the other parent has the financial ability to care for the child. Sadly, sometimes a person loses a job, they lose their housing, some people even wind up living in their car with their children. That's not a situation any child should have to be in if there's any other option. That would be a factor that the court could consider. The situation of the other parent, the financial situation that's going on, sometimes, God forbid, sexual abuse or physical abuse or emotional abuse has occurred to the child in the home of the other parent. Maybe it's not even the other parent that's done it. Maybe it's their spouse. Maybe it's even another child who lives in the home. That can be a factor the court could consider if the child is suffering some kind of abuse in that home. There are a lot of factors that play into whether or not a custody change should occur. Here's the important thing. If you're concerned about it, You want to make sure that the court knows what your concerns are. We have a whole team of people who work in our firm that work to put together all the evidence, all the exhibits, everything necessary to get admissible and relevant evidence into the court to show the court why your concerns are legitimate and why the court should share your concerns and should change custody over to you. If you're trying to get ready for a custody modification hearing, what do you need to know? Here's just a couple of short pointers. Number one, keep in mind that everything you've posted on social media, everything you've sent in text messages, maybe even phone calls you've had or personal interactions you've had with other people are probably recorded, and you've got to know that those things may come up in trial. So you need to make sure your lawyer knows all the bad news, anything that we need to prepare for, whether it's threats you've made against somebody or whether it's activities you've been involved with that maybe you wouldn't want the whole world to know. Make sure your lawyer knows everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. One thing you have to remember in a trial is don't volunteer information. Make sure that when you go to court, you answer the questions that are asked and only the questions that are asked. Because look, if the lawyers want more information, they're going to ask you another question. And when you're in trial, you got to make sure that you don't react and huff and sigh and roll your eyes or any way react to what the other side is saying. Judges hate that. And you got to make sure you keep a cool and calm demeanor. Make notes to your lawyer and make sure that you prepare them for everything that can come up in the trial, because as you're in that trial, whether it's for 2 hours or even a full day of a trial, that's a very short window that this judge has to hear the facts and hear the evidence of the testimony to make a decision that you hope is going to be favorable to you. And if you blow any part of that, all the months of work that have gone in to preparing for this trial could be sunk right down the drain because of some things you did during the trial. So be respectful, be honest, be prepared, and your custody modification trial should hopefully go in your favor. So if you know it's time for a custody modification fight in your family, reach out to us today. We'd love to help you.